Lovelies, and welcome back. My name's Juliet. I did start this YouTube channel at the beginning of last year, and it was under a different name. Now, after watching other people on Booktube and Bookstagram and hearing about Book Talk, I'm not on Book Talk, but after watching social media in relation to books and readings, I felt like I wasn't good enough to be on YouTube and having a channel. And these are the reasons why. I incorrectly assumed that what I saw on YouTube and Bookstagram was the norm. Now, look, I'm old enough to know that that is not the norm, but when you see it over and over and over again, you start to think that it is the norm. So one, I didn't think I was reading enough. Two, I didn't think my bookshelf was aesthetic enough. And three, I didn't think I was young enough that people would want to hear my opinion. But I sat there for months and I continued to watch Booktube and I got off Instagram. I don't find it a place that necessarily is great for making you feel good about the type of reading that you want to do or the amount of books that you want to read. Now, I'm not saying that all booktubers and all people on Bookstagram and all people on Book Talk are doing the wrong thing. Yes, there are people that can read 10 to 20 books a month. Yes, there are people that have the glamorous bookshelves. Yes, there are people that have the time. Lovelies, I don't have the time. I'm a mum, I do not have the best health, and I do this when I can. So I started to think, I'm not reading enough books. I'm not reading the books that people want to hear about. I don't have reviews that people will want to hear about. And then I thought, no, this is absolutely rubbish, because there are authors out there that are just as good. There are books out there, lovelies, that I want you to hear about that I absolutely love. I went back to choosing a book the way I used to choose it before I started watching Booktube and Bookstagram and all that sort of stuff. I went back to choosing books by walking through a bookstore and looking at covers and picking them up. And yes, I judge a book by its cover, totally, I will admit that. Who doesn't really? But I found that going back to the way I used to choose books was when I was finding my 5-star reads again. Now, yes, I fell into the habit of buying the books that people were reading on Bookstagram and Booktube. And yes, I fell into the habit of thinking my bookshelf is not glamorous enough and I need special editions. Yes, I have them over there, and I will put up a picture of my shelf here so that you can see. However, my shelf is dark, and like the shelves on Booktube are white shelves, and aesthetically they look lovely when you do a thumbnail, right? My thumbnails were not looking lovely because my bookshelves are dark. That's why I'm sitting over here. But this is how silly it is, really. And so now I just thought, you know what, bugger it. I'm gonna get back on and I'm gonna do Booktube the way I wanna do it. So if you're someone like me that's a little bit over about hearing about the same books, or you're over about thinking you're not reading enough, or you're not reading the right books, or you can't start your own YouTube channel because your bookshelves aren't glamorous enough, or you don't have jelly cats, or you don't have special editions, or you don't want to spend half an hour doing your hair and your makeup before you get on. You know, if you're like me, then stick around, because this is the place for you. Now, I'm not here to say that the book community is a bad community. I do not think that at all. And I have made some really lovely friends on Bookstagram that I absolutely treasure. However, I just felt overall generally it wasn't the place for me. So I just don't post on there anymore. And I wanted to come back to YouTube because I'm a chatter. I love to chat, and you're restricted on Instagram about how long you can chat about books. So for me, that's why I chose YouTube in the first place, but I just felt completely inadequate. And I just thought, no, I'm going to get on here because someone needs to say this, and I don't want others to feel inadequate. I don't want other people to sit there and go, I'm not reading the right amount of books and my shelves aren't aesthetic enough and I can't do this. You can do this. If you have got a phone, you can do this. Yes, I have a ring light, but cheap is cheap. It's on Amazon, right? You can do this completely yourselves. And you do not have to have the most aesthetic things. Some of the booktubers that I love the most have the most simplest setups, and I just love to hear them talk about books. Or I love watching a good old book haul. Yes, I love watching a good old book haul. But I also love to hear about books that I haven't heard about 1,000 times. I mean, you kind of get a little bit over it, and that's where I'm at now. I want to have my channel showing books that, yes, some of you may have heard about, but I want to show and I want to display authors that people are not hearing about as much, that are just as good, if not better, than what we're hearing about constantly in social media. So today I'm going to talk to you about 3 books that, in my opinion, you don't hear about in social media, but were all 5-star books. And one of them got me into reading fiction again after years and years of just reading non-fiction. And I'm going to start with that book first. So a couple of years ago, just before I got really sick and ended up in hospital, I was walking through the bookshop looking for a book to try and get my son into reading. That didn't happen, but I stumbled across this book. Now, this is Lisa C. Lady Tan's Circle of Women. Now, yes, I bought this from the cover. Lovely, isn't it stunning? I love Asian culture, in particular Japanese culture. However, this is about Chinese culture. Now, this book, literally in hospital, was like my lifesaver. It gave me something to read. It's not a super long book, but it was just so enthralling, and it took me to a place. It's set in the 1500s. Is that right? Can't remember. Gosh, that was like, when was this? When did I read this? October 2023. So it was a little while ago, lovelies. I'm pretty sure it's in the 1500s. Isn't that terrible? Anyway, it's about a lady that practiced Chinese medicine back then. And technically the ladies, or women, I should say, were not really allowed to practice Chinese medicine. It was just the men. However, this is a story about a lady who did practice medicine, and then when she got married, it wasn't really accepted by her family that she married into for her to continue to practice medicine. The moment I read this book, I forgot everything that I was going through. I could escape. And I learned that I love that escape. And you don't get that escape with non-fiction books. And let's be honest, lovelies, that's why we read, isn't it? As like an escape. And that's why we have this hobby, because it's a lovely way to escape what's going on around us. This book is an absolutely fabulous escape, and it hands down 5 stars for me. I then got Lisa's backlist, and I have read some of her other books, and I will do a video on those because they're really, really good books. Lisa's a lovely person too. So I highly recommend that one. And this one was not something I saw on social media. I wasn't on like Bookstagram or Booktube back then anyway. I chose this the way I think you should choose books, just the way you choose them, not the way social media tells you to choose them. So this one I would recommend. If you're into Asian culture and you're looking at a historical fiction book, this one I highly recommend. Okay, now my second book actually wasn't chosen by walking through the shops. However, it was recommended to me by my father-in-law. Now, it's called A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Now, this one is, I think it was over 600 pages. No, just under 5. This one is, oh my gosh, this was amazing. This one is about, it's got the Russian history in it. However, it's about a man who is arrested, and then he's sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a hotel, and he can't leave that hotel. But it's about the relationships he makes while he's kept in this hotel, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, I'm going to say the first 10% is very Russian heavy in relation to the history in Russia. Now, I don't know a lot about Russian history, and so when I first read it, I thought, oh my gosh, my father-in-law thinks I'm way smarter than I actually am. This is really heavy. But I pushed through it, and once I pushed through that initial 10%, this one just absolutely, I devoured it. I loved it so much. I highly recommended it. The relationships in this book just felt so real to me, and he felt so real to me. And I didn't want the book to end. And the only thing I was disappointed about was the ending. I wanted it to be a little bit more. I felt like it ended too short, in my opinion. It sort of stopped too quickly, and I didn't get to find out about what happened to some of the other characters, and I would have loved that. But I absolutely loved this book, and I loved Amor Towles' writing style. And I have got some of his other books too on my shelf to read, so I am looking at reading those too soon. So I would highly recommend this one. I haven't seen this one a lot on social media either, and I think it's highly underrated. And I actually do think that I can understand if people pick this book up initially and think, maybe it's not for me. But if, like I said, if you can get past that sort of first 10%, home and hosed, this book is absolutely amazing. My father-in-law was right, and now I take all of his recommendations. So I do have a couple of other recommendations from him, but this was the first book and I absolutely loved it. Now, the final book I'm going to talk to you about today is probably one of my all-time favorite reads. Now, I read this book back in January, so only recently. We were at the airport, we were just going interstate for a holiday. My daughter was nervous about going on flight, so we went to look at books because she's a reader, she loves to read too. Of course, I'm looking around, seeing what grabs my attention, and then I saw this cover. Look at that. How stunning. The Mad Wife by Megan Church. And like, I just, even if I could see her face, it would have loved it, but you know, it's gorgeous. This book, I had not seen anywhere else. And since reading it, I've not even seen it in my local bookstores, like the bigger bookstores that we have here in Australia. I've not seen it there. I have only ever seen one other person on Instagram reading this. This book blew my mind. It's absolutely amazing. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of the blurb because I don't think I can do it justice giving you an explanation about what it's about, okay? Just the first couple of sentences there in the back of the blurb, in the bigger words, it says, they called it hysteria, she called it survival. Lulu Mayfield has spent the last 5 years moulding herself into the perfect 1950s housewife. Despite the tragic memories that haunt her and the weight of exhausting expectations, she keeps her husband happy, her household running, and her gelatin salads the talk of the neighbourhood. But after she gives birth to her second child, Lulu's carefully crafted life begins to unravel. Now, I really don't want to say too much more because I really think this is something that you should just go into blind. Now, if you are a mum and if you're married, this will absolutely still hit spots with you now. And even though it was set in the 1950s, I think it's completely relevant for today's times still. In a different way, but absolutely I could relate to every aspect of this book. And I loved Lulu to bits. So once again, this is a book that I didn't want to end and I didn't want to leave her, and I just loved it. And I have never heard about Megan Church before, but I was so glad I picked this book up because this book was the reason why I went, no, bugger it, I'm getting back on YouTube, because people like Megan Church and this book, The Mad Wife, needs to be spoken about. People need to hear about books that are fabulous, that aren't out there on YouTube. So I'm here to say this is amazing. This is my all-time favorite book. I'm 46, I've read a lot of books. This is my all-time favorite book, my number one recommendation. If this is the only recommendation you take away today, this is the book. I love it to bits, okay? I'm here to rave about it because it's absolutely fabulous. And lovelies, go out there and choose your books the way you used to. If you're like me and you'd walk through the bookstore and you pick books up and you look at them and you're attracted to a book by its cover, I think there's a reason you're attracted to that book. I think it's like a fate. You know, I think that's your call to pick that book up and go, yep, that's the book I'm going to read. I think that's why I was called to this book. I don't think every book that's recommended on Booktube and Bookstagram and BookTok are for everyone. I don't think that all the fantasy books that are out there are everyone's cup of tea. I don't think all the romance are. I hate just standard romance books. I can't stand them. I bought them thinking, okay, well, this is what I've got to read to be on Booktube. I bought Magnolia Parks. I'm not going to read that. I bought The 7-Year Slip. I started that. I sat there and I read them and I went, why did I get this? I don't like just standalone romance. Like I don't mind it when there's a plot, but I can't stand it on its own. So what I'm here to tell you is go and choose your books the way you used to. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying Booktube isn't the place for everyone. I love it. I still love to sit here and relax and watch Booktube. I'm not saying that the books that people are recommending are not great books. Some of them are great books, and I'm sure that for some people they're absolutely magical, but what I'm saying is it's not for everyone. We're not all the same. We don't have all the same tastes. But what I'm here to do is to highlight some of the authors that we don't hear about, and to highlight the books that I've really loved, that I've not seen a lot of or not seen at all on social media, so that perhaps you too can pick up something that's different and you might find something for you. Now, lovelies, comment below and let me know what your thoughts are in relation to Booktube and Bookstagram and BookTok and all those sorts of things. Let me know what you like to read. I'm really interested to hear if you've got any suggestions for me based on what I've said today. And I'd really love it if you agree with what I've said today and you've enjoyed spending time with me. I'd love it if you could subscribe and hit that like button. Comment below what is your favorite book that you just picked up based on no recommendation at all. I would love to hear, because I think they're the best. If you're watching this in the first 7 days, YouTube have just brought out that hype button that you can press on a mobile phone. So if you are doing that, I'd love it if you could hype this video up. I really hope that you have found this video not refreshing, or maybe refreshing, I don't know. I really hope that out there I have made someone sit there and think, yes, I totally agree. Like, I don't think I'm the only one, lovelies, and I don't think this is necessarily an unpopular opinion. What I think this is an opinion that's not said often enough on social media, so I'm going to say it. So if you are someone who's sitting there thinking, yeah, I totally agree, then lovelies, I'd love it if you could subscribe and stick around, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.